So I'm joined by your eighth-ranked pound-for-pound woman in the UK and Ireland in Summer Onley. After a performance at the Four Nations and simply just how the six fights that you've had so far have gone, how do you feel so far?
Yeah, pretty good. I wasn't really expecting to get all finishes, to be honest. But yeah, it feels good to be 6-0. It's getting a bit more pressure as it goes on, but I mean, that's what happens in it when you get six fights and they all go like the way that they did. But yeah, it's all going good.
And it'd be quite right in saying in the fights that you've had so far, it doesn't seem as though anyone's really been able to have an answer to what you do. It seems as it's almost expected what you are going to do, but they can't stop it anyway. So to be able to do what you have done in such dominant fashion, do you feel as though there's been many other rises in amateur MMA quite like it so far?
Um, I mean, I think there's probably like been people that have done what I've done, but I think it's like for females maybe not. I feel like it's a bit different to always try and get the finishes. Like I think from day one I wanted it to always. I mean, it's not always going to happen. I mean, they'll obviously I'll have a decision eventually, but I think it's a bit different for especially females to be getting all these finishes within the distance. So I'm not aware of any females that have had that before. So yeah, it's pretty cool to have that under my belt, really.
And just to touch on a little, pretty much from your amateur debut to now, women's MMA constantly is evolving. But what would you say the biggest differences are in women's MMA from when you started to how you look at it now?
I feel like, especially at pro ranks, I know there's like quite a lot of women that have just gone pro in the last couple of years out of the UK. And I feel like with in male and female, like the levels that amateur produces at the moment is just amazing. Like I think, I've gone to a couple of shows recently, and there's been a lot of women fights on there. Like I think I went to Battle Arena a few weeks ago, and there was a few women's uh, amateur bouts on there, and like the levels are just so much better than what they were when I started. I mean, I only started like 3 years ago, really. So I mean, in 3 years, I've seen like the development of like females in the UK, and it's getting better and better every time that I go to a show. Like I feel like a lot of the female fights that are on these shows are probably one of the better fights as well. I feel like they always bring the levels, they always bring the heat. So yeah, it's just getting better and better every time you see it, really.
And as well, I touched on just before I got into the questions about the pound for pound ranking, but obviously 8 overall and then number one at amateur level. To have that sort of ranking that's your name with, obviously, as you just said, 3 years of training. What's that been like for you as well? So I have that number one pound for pound amateur spot.
Well, I mean, like when I first did my first fight, it was like there was obviously no pressure. I mean, I'd done jujitsu for ages, so I thought I'll take a crack at the MMA scene, and then I had no pressure on myself going into it. But as soon as I got the win, I was like, oh my god, like the like I said to myself, I want to be pound for pound best in the UK eventually, and I didn't think I'd get there that quickly. Um, especially I think, when I started fighting a lot better people, like Lexi Rook and Charlotte Cooper, I think they were like the top dogs at the time. So I was like, if I fight them and I win, that like puts me in like contention to be number one. So yeah, in 3 years, I mean, it's gone pretty quickly, but I feel like, between like the first couple of opponents that I had and then when I fought like Lexi, it was just a massive step up in competition. So I think that's probably what made me get higher in the rankings. And then obviously with Charlotte, that was another tough fight, another like really, really good opponent. So yeah, it was I think it was just like the opponents that I fought were just really, really good. They were like the best in their country. So obviously if I won against them, I was like in my mind I should be the best in the country. So yeah, for 3 years, I mean, it's pretty good going.
Yeah, and as you touched on in terms of the step up of competition, it seems with that step up have come several sort of accolades as well. I know you've won I believe, the Battle Arena Championship and then won gold at the Four Nations. So to also get those sort of things, does it leave you with much left at amateur? Do you still feel like there's lots to do at this point at amateur level? Or are you now starting to think a little bit about the pro being 6-0?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm doing the Euros, the IMAF Euros at the end of September, because I mean, I don't know if there's any bantamweights in the country at the moment that I've got left to fight. I mean, everyone's gone pro that I was looking to fight anyway. So I mean, it kind of makes sense to go pro after the Euros. I mean, depending on how the Euros goes, yeah, it depends if there's anything else left in the UK. I mean, I'm not aware of any bantamweights coming through the rankings at the moment, but I mean, there could be. So I mean, if there is, then that's cool. I'll totally fight someone. But I'm not aware of that at the moment. But yeah, if I do well at the Euros, I mean, it's probably something that we have to talk to my coach about, because I think it's just, especially at the moment, like the pool of female fighters at the moment is quite small. It's still small, but I mean, like, it's getting bigger. But I mean, yeah, if there is anyone out there that wants to, have a fight at bantamweight, then I'm more than happy to take it. But I'm not aware of anyone at the moment. So yeah, it might have to be that I'll go pro soon.
And as you mentioned with the Euros there as well, obviously that's another big step up for you in terms of the different sorts of competition that you get. So does that add a different element of excitement to it a little bit, knowing that you're going into the unknown somewhat with the opponents that you could face? And then just in terms of the preparation for that as well, what's that looked like leading up to it?
Oh, well, I mean, I did the Four Nations like at the start of July, and as soon as I did that, I feel like, my coach was on about, we're going to either take a fight at the start of September or you'll be looking at doing the Euros. So, I mean, I essentially just went straight back into a fight camp. So, I mean, I'm training like 6 days a week. Most of the time it's twice a day. So training's just always been the same. It's always like pretty intense. There's a lot of sparring, a lot of wrestling this time around, which is cool, because I wanted to work on that for a long time. But yeah, it's been proper full on at the moment, really full on. And then what was the other part of the question? What was that? Oh yeah, about the level of competition. Yeah. It's weird because like the tournament style is like, obviously you have to weigh in at the start of it like every day, and you can't research the people that you're going to fight, which is, it's obviously normally you'd have just one opponent and you'd find out about them, you'd figure out what they're good at, you'd watch their fights. Whereas this one, it's like, I have no idea who I'm going to fight. I mean, I think I know how many people are going to be in my fight bracket, but I mean, yeah, it's just weird not knowing. It's just kind of like, you just have to do the best game that that you can do. Like, obviously, if I'm going to rely on my grappling a little bit more, then my aim is to try and get him to the ground and sub him, or or ground and pound or whatever. But yeah, it's cool. It's a cool format. I mean, like with the Four Nations, it was pretty similar. I mean, you don't know who you're going to fight, but I mean, like, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, it's just good to have as well, like, you might get a couple of fights in a week, so that's really good for us. Instead of having to wait like 3 or 4 months in between fights, it's nice to get like potentially like 4 or 5 matches in a week, which will be really good for all my experience and stuff. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, and as you mentioned now, obviously with the lack of research that you can actually do on an opponent, and you touched on it a little bit, but in that sense, would you say that most of the preparation is just built around honing your skills and finding out what's working best for you at that time? And is that the sort of mentality that you look to take into the Euros?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, they could be a really good striker or a really good grappler. It's just, I mean, you kind of probably have to figure out when you're fighting, like, if your game plan isn't going to like go in the way you wanted it, then you have to like switch it up and think, or maybe, if they're a better striker than me, I'm gonna have to take them down, or vice versa. So yeah, it just depends on the day, really. I mean, I'll do what I think I'm better at, and if that's not like gonna win me the fight, then I'll have to switch it up. But I feel like it's good, because it makes you think on your feet. You have to like figure things out for yourself of what's working and what's not. So yeah, it's kind of like based around my game plan. But I mean, if it has to be thrown out the door, I'll mix it up a little bit when I need to. But yeah, just working on like the best things for me at the moment.
Yeah, and then finally, just to touch on a little bit, Gracie Barra Derby, obviously training out of there. There's a lot of people that are preparing for fights. I know Daniel Ward, he's been preparing for how many months, but people keep pulling out, or his fights are cancelled. And then everyone else as well in there. So just sort of training around those people. They're always preparing for something or something coming up for them. What's that like in terms of a motivator, and then just honing your skills as well?
Oh yeah, like even if one of us doesn't have a fight, we're all normally there every night, like, or every day, like helping each other. It's always good getting my ass handed to me by all those guys every day. It's a humbling experience. But no, it's really good. Like obviously we've got a fair few people making like their debuts. I know Dan was obviously meant to be fighting this weekend, but unfortunately his opponent pulled out I think last Friday, so that sucks for him. Like I know how hard he's working, and you know he's only getting better and better, so yeah, I feel sorry for the next person that comes against him. But yeah, like we've got another guy, Darnell, he's fighting on Saturday, and it's his debut, so that'll be really good, so watch out for him. But yeah, we've got loads of people coming out of Gracie Barra Derby, and we're all in fight camps all the time, and it's just it's nice to see people always helping out and like, you know, pushing each other to be their best. But yeah, we've got I feel like Gracie Barra Derby are slowly making them, you know, making a name for ourselves. I mean, we've got, what is it? I think we've got 3 Battle Arena champions. And, you know, considering we're such a small gym, like to have 3, like, you know, people holding belts at the moment at amateur level is pretty decent. And yeah, we're only getting better and better every time we step in the cage. And yeah, with the more fighters coming through, I think they'll, you know, people will be hearing about us a little bit more, which is what we're aiming for.
And then as well, just finally from me, obviously this sport is a self-funded sport, so in terms of going into the Euros, it's an expensive one. So just in terms of as a fighter and how much things like sponsorships help and support from people help, how much would you say those are helpers when going into something like this? It's still such an early level of your career.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, yeah, like you said, like we get no funding, like, you know, even like little things like my membership and, you know, having to like, I traveled to Birmingham quite a lot to go there down at Ronin, and like obviously with fuel prices, it's very expensive. So with sponsorship money and like, you know, I've got a GoFundMe page for the IMAFs for Euros, and I could not believe how generous people were like with supporting me. And so that was really overwhelming to see that. But yeah, like sponsorships and any sort of help is amazing. Like, you know, it means so much to me that I have this many people believing in me this early on in my amateur career, you know. But yeah, it means the world. Like I've got a few sponsors that helped me get there. I've got Langley Agriculture, he's like my main sponsor, and then I've got Mike Osteopath, he helps me out with fixing my body every week because I'm always broken inside and outside. But yeah, so sponsorships really help out. Like, you know, any little thing that you can give us is you know, amazing to us, because we don't get anything. You know, even like fighting on a promotion, you know, we don't get like a fight purse or anything. Everything's, you know, coming out of our own pocket. So any sponsorships is just more than welcome.
Yeah, and then just finally from me, just a prediction going into the Euros and how you think the performance will be. And obviously just feel free to plug any sort of socials that you've got. I was going to say sponsors, but I think you just touched on them a little bit. And then anything else as well that you'd like to just shout out a little bit.
Yeah, I feel I just want to be completely dominant again. I don't want it to go to a decision. I mean, we'll see if it does. I mean, obviously with the European scene, you know, it's probably a step up in competition again. So, but yeah, I'm always going to be hunting for a finish. I always like, you know, I like it to be dominant, essentially. So I'm looking to either get some subs or ground, maybe even a TKO would be cool. But yeah, just looking to be dominant in all areas again. And a few shout outs. Yeah, it'll be my sponsors again. So I've just already mentioned that. And then my socials, I don't really go on Facebook, so it's just Instagram, but it's just at Onley MMA.
On Onley MMA. So there you are. That is everything from me. I do really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. The Euros, be sure to support Summer Onley. Whether you're watching anything, but no, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well.
Go.